Hello guys, for this 2021 political science YouTube making project, I decided to work on the topic WTO, World Trade Organization. So without further ado, let's move to the next slide. Disclaimer: this YouTube clip is solely made as part of Class 12 CBSE Political Science project for 2020 to 2021 session. Thus, this is an educational video which might contain clips from other YouTube videos or websites. Okay, so WTO has one of the most impressive records in economic governance by promoting trade liberalization and economic development by Anna Lin. So for this video, we are mainly going to focus on WTO and its function. So without moving into the main topic, first we will get a slide facts about World Trade Organization. So its main office or its official building is located in Geneva, Switzerland, and it was established on 1st January 1995 as a successor of another trade organization known as GATT, which stands for General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs, and it is created after Uruguay round negotiations, and about 98% of the world trade is represented by these member nations. And so let's talk about what WTO stands for. So WTO, it has a main document known as WTO agreements, which are quite lengthy and complex because they are like a legal text which covers a wide range of activities. So but a number of simple and fundamental principles run throughout all these documents. So it believes and it states that non-discrimination is highly believed, and a country should not discriminate between its member partners, and it should not discriminate between its own and foreign products, services, or nationals. And it fully stand for opening trade by lowering trade barriers to encourage trade, and like barriers includes like custom duties or tariffs, and measures such as import bans or quotas that restricts quantity selectively. So tariff is basically a barrier, which means you have to pay taxes for importing or exporting. And the third one, we have predictability and transparency. So foreign companies, MNC, or investor or government, they should be confident that the trade barriers will not be raised arbitrarily. And with stability and predictability, investment is encouraged, jobs are created, and consumer can fully benefit from the competition, like getting more choices and living a better standards, like nice house, have all the basic necessities, and living above poverty line. And then next we have fair competition. So when we talk about opening trade barriers and all this stuff, competition is something which is something that we cannot prevent. So WTO discourage unfair practices such as export subsidies and dumping products below the normal value to gain market share. And by establishing fair or unfair. So WTO mainly works on establishing what is fair and what is unfair, so to make sure that countries can work on basis of these documents and these statements which is written on the form or anything. So So it is big concept. So the question come to our mind is that what is WTO? So I gave you all the facts, what does it stand for, but what is WTO? So it is the only global international organization which deals with rules of trade between its member nations. So at its heart, their WTO agreement, which is negotiated and signed by bulk of world's trading nations, and which is agreed in their own parliament. So the main goal of the creation of WTO and its agreement is to help the producer of goods and services, exporter and importer to conduct their business peacefully without any disturbance or any middleman through directly uh, selling their product to the consumer. So what does WTO do? First, it improves people's life. WTO fundamental goal of WTO is to improve the welfare of people around the world, and its founding agreement known as Marrakesh Agreement, it recognizes that the trade should be conducted with the view to raise standards of living, to ensure full employment, and to increase the real income of the people around the world, and to expand global trade in goods and services while having the optimal usage of world's resources. And the second one is negotiating trade rules. So trade rules are important part of WTO's. So it is signed by both bunch of nations. So it is the main reason for the creation of WTO after 5 decades of negotiation is to reduce obstacles to trade, such as trade barrier, tariff, quotas, and such stuff. And where countries have faced trade barriers or wanted them to be lowered, the negotiations have helped them to open for trade. Conversely, in some circumstances, like WTO rules also still support maintaining trade barriers. For example, like protecting the small businesses or small industry that are yet to grow in underdeveloped or developing countries. So they support those countries to keep their trade barrier high, so that other big industry from other country, developed country, cannot enter into their market. And the third one is maintaining open trade. So the main purpose of the WTO is to help the trade to flow as freely as possible, with a view that there are no undesirable side effects. Like if there are no undesirable side effect by opening trade, by uh, helping the trade to flow as freely as possible, then it will increasingly stimulate economic growth and employment and support integration of developing countries in international trading system. So when we talk about maintaining open trade, the rules of WTO should be transparent and predictable. So it will ensure that the trade rules around the world will and to the trade rule around the world will won't change suddenly. And let's move on into the fourth topic, which is settling disputes. So when we talk about trade relation, it often or it frequently involves conflicting interests, as different nations have different economic development, different background, different opinions, and different interests. It is bound to have different conflicting ideas. So the most harmonious way of settling these conflicts or dispute or differences is through neutral procedure, which is based on agreed legal foundation, which is basically WTO's documents, agreements. So the purpose behind the dispute settlement process is written into WTO agreement. So let's move into the fifth topic, which is building trade capacity. It basically focus on developing countries by helping them, um, like including longer periods to implement agreements and commitments, measure to increase their trading opportunities, and helping them to build trade capacities and handling disputes, and to implement technical standards so that the developing countries won't left behind much and they can move along with developed countries. And well, so overseeing WTO agreements. So WTO agreements plays an important role in negotiations. So WTO help in providing rules for international commerce and binds the government of member nations to keep their trade policies within an agreed limits. So the main goal is to help the producer of goods and services, exporter and importers to conduct business with the view to raise the standard of living while allowing the government to meet social and environmental objectives. So what is WTO? Who is WTO? So it is an organization for opening trade. Second, it is a forum for a government to negotiate trade agreements. And third, it is known as a place for member nations to settle trade disputes. And fourth, it operates a system of trade rules. And fifth, essentially WTO is a place where government try to sort out trade problems that they face with each other without breaking it into war, and solving peacefully through dialogue and discussion. And the fifth one is basically discussion regarding trade. So let's move. Okay, we have a quiz time. So the question is on the next page, and you will get a 6 second to think about it, and you have to answer it quickly. So among the following options, which is not the objective of the WTO? First, to protect the environment. Second, to improve the balance of payment situation of member countries. Third, to improve the standard of living of people of the member countries. And fourth, to enlarge production of and trade of goods. So the answer is not directly found from this, cannot be found directly from this video, but you can get hints from it because it's quite easy. So the 6 seconds starts now. And the answer is B. So WTO does not have a role in improving the balance of payment situation of member countries. And we are going to quickly do some SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis is basically for planning for the project or some other stuff. So when we talk about the strengths of WTO, it is known for providing legal framework for negotiating trade dispute WTO agreements to provide better stability and predictability in trade, and it also known for settling trade disputes and etc. So one of the weakness of WTO, which is not favored by most of the developing countries, is that it is known for discriminating developing countries by not giving them the privilege that earlier developing countries, now developed countries, had. And the third one is threat, which is basically challenges that WTO is facing right now. So the unilateral tariffs threatened by the US and China if they don't adhere to the WTO's established procedure or rules, and if it is triggered, then it will inflame the trade tensions that cannot be constrained by trade body. And the fifth, which is opportunities, it basically says how WTO can improve. So WTO can improve by being more transparent and predictable. So from this table, I'm sure that you can understand what is SWOT analysis. So it is an abbreviation which stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Next, we'll move on to evolution of world trade. So for your kind information, trade is calculated as average of export and import, and it excludes re-export or import of re-exports. So I hope it's not messy right now. And world trade volume today is roughly 4 times the level recorded in the early days of GATT. So we can see how world trade had improved after the formation of new trade organization, which is WTO, after 1995. And world trade values today have ballooned almost by 300 times from 1950 levels. So I would like to thank and give credit for this amazing PowerPoint, which I got it from Carnival, Slide Carnival. And I would like to thank our political science teacher for giving this amazing opportunities to go through different topics and to experience new technical opportunities. And thank you everyone for listening to this video, and see you next time.